In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the differences between small groups and house churches. So let's get into it. A few times over the years, whenever I talk to Christians about our house churches, many of them would respond with things like,
"Oh, you have a small group in your home? I do too."
I kind of felt like they were saying,
"Oh, that's cute."
They kind of think that house churches are just glorified small groups. But I believe there are many differences actually between a traditional church small group and a local house church. Of course, this all depends on how individual house churches are run. So here are 5 ways that small groups are different than house churches. Number 1, small groups are optional. House church gatherings are the only option available. I remember when I was a pastor at a few traditional churches, and I would get up on this stage during announcement time or whatever and really try to get the congregation plugged into small groups. Every pastor, no matter what model, agreed that real spiritual growth happens in small, intimate settings like small groups, and not just sitting in pews every Sunday. So we made signups easy. We had people share testimonies of what God is doing in small groups. And we did get a bump in participation in small groups, but the vast majority of people still did not attend small groups. No matter what we did, the congregation viewed these small groups aimed at intentional spiritual growth as optional. But in a house church, there's no options. You're thrust into an intimate, smaller gathering that is aimed for spiritual growth. In a traditional church with small groups, the participation rate for these groups were maybe around 35 to 40%. In house churches, it's literally 100% participation because of the model. So there's difference number 1. Number 2, small groups are a sub-ministry that are a part of a larger community. House churches are the community. Now, this isn't necessarily an advantage to house churches, it's just a really good distinguishing factor. Small groups have to follow the programmatic approach of the larger church context rather than be autonomous. House churches operate very organically instead of organizationally. So the main structure of it is very different. Many times I would micromanage my small group leaders to fit a specific mold that's a part of the larger church context. To help us understand this, I have an example where I actually believe that the communion, the Lord's Supper, should be actually celebrated in a smaller, more intimate setting and also around a meal, a table full of friends. But many traditional churches only participate in communion on Sundays, and if that, many of them only do it like once a month. But this is just a preference that has biblical grounding, by the way. And I'm going down a rabbit hole. I don't really want to, but I want to use that as an example to show how house churches can be autonomous in partaking of communion because they are the community. Difference number 3, small groups are usually age or gender segmented. House churches include all generations and both men and women in ministry. Okay, not every traditional small group ministry does this, but many of them operate in such a way that it segments certain age groups and men and women separated in different groups. While there are certain advantages to separating men and women and even age separation, I don't think that's a very good long-term strategy for discipling the whole person in the whole church. The reason is because younger Christians need the mentorship of older Christians, and the older ones need the help of the next generation. Similarly, men need to hear the perspectives of women in this type of setting, and women need to hear the perspectives that men share. I really believe that this helps us grow in community in the long term. Many house churches, including mine, operate where even young people and even children learn to engage in discussion, engage in discipleship, and engage in the community. And us men get to hear the perspectives of women instead of being in our own big masculine echo chamber. Most small groups, if we're just being honest, operate in these little echo chambers, and I just don't think that's a great idea for long-term discipleship. Difference number 4, small groups are usually centered on a felt need or topic. House churches are holistic in discipling the whole person. Again, not every small group does this, but like 90% of the small groups that I've been a part of for the last maybe 7 years operate with curriculum or topic-based interests. Now, there's nothing wrong with this at all. Curriculums are great, and we've heard many testimonies of different video curriculums and books that have done a tremendous aid to Christian spiritual formation. But if all we do in a small group is go topic after topic, curriculum after curriculum, and we don't have the option to go through Bible reading plans and be flexible, even practice spiritual disciplines outside of the small group, it really just turns into an institutional school. Instead, house churches really try to operate less like schools and more like Jesus dojos, where instead of learning inside a classroom-like setting, we really try to learn what we're doing inside and practice it externally outside the 4 walls of our house or church. Instead of focusing on certain curriculums, house churches focus on the holistic need of the whole church rather than just a select few group of people. Difference number 5, small groups are limited to a short season. House churches operate continuously throughout the year. Most small groups that I've been a part of only go through certain seasons, and when that season ends, maybe it's a semester or like a fall season, the members are encouraged to go to another group the next season with totally different members and maybe even a different leader. Then they have to reform relationships that they just had the previous semester, but do it with all new people. Again, while there might be some advantages to this, I think the cons outweigh the advantages. In our house church, we continuously meet throughout the year, and we grow over time and through suffering with the same group of people, the same leaders, and we get to be intimate throughout the year. Now, please hear me out. Small groups have done such a fantastic job at discipling people in traditional churches, and even including me. They've really changed people's lives because of how intimate they feel with fellow believers. On the outside, maybe house churches really do look like small groups, but I really hope this video helps you understand that there are actually big differences in culture between small groups and house churches. But for the most part, these differences are actually what make house churches stand out. In my opinion, the biggest common denominator in the differences between small groups and house churches is that small groups really have a structure of discipling people, but really only in a short-term basis. House churches really focus on long-term discipleship. And you may disagree, that's totally fine. This is just my perspective and my opinion, and it comes from someone who's led a house church for a few years and has led small group ministries for many years in a traditional church. So I hope you learned something, that small groups are actually a little bit different than house churches. But here's the thing, no matter which one you're a part of, it's still important to grow in your local church as a disciple, as an apprentice of Jesus. Get plugged into your church, serve, and be in community, no matter what that looks like. I hope this video helps you love Jesus and your church even more. God bless y'all.
I love you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, chicken wings. Bye-bye, alligators. See you next time. I hope you have a great, funny day.